when you were streaming, and I did go and sign up for that event that you're doing.
Oh,
and
great.
so let's talk about that so that I know that we've covered what you're up to so that everybody knows these things. But Eleanor has a very cool event coming up that's a virtual event, so everybody can join or at least help and support. So talk about that.
Yeah, so thank you for bringing that up. So on November 18th at 7 p.m. Eastern, sorry to all my friends in Europe, there is going to be a conversation between Mohammed Bamieh, who's a Palestinian author and professor, and Ather Zia, who is a Kashmiri author and professor, basically talking about the no-state solution, not just for occupied Palestine, but for Kashmir as well, and how the nation-state is actually a colonial construct. And so when we speak of true liberation, we have to speak of it outside of the confines of the nation-state system. It's a ticketed event, and all the money goes to doctors in central Gaza, Deir al-Balah, Gaza. So yeah, check it out. It's at artkillingapathy.simpletix with an X because people are being cute.com.
Yeah. And I am going to be on there. Not that anybody will see me, but I'll be thinking of you all while I'm on there. But it's one of those things, guys, that even if you can't go, just throw a little money their way. It's going to help Gaza, and we need to all be sort of collectively working on that. So I appreciate that. But you always have so much fun stuff going on. Like I've never really been to Baltimore, but I know that if I go, I got to hang out at Red Emma's because of you.
Yes, you do. Red Emma's is amazing. It's one of those places that when you go there, you're like, oh, okay, I'm not crazy. The world is completely crazy, but this place reminds you that there are good people out there who actually believe in justice for all the oppressed. It's a wonderful co-op bookstore and coffee shop. And Baltimore is way cooler than people give it credit for. So I like that it's kind of been a self-selecting city of people who actually want to be here, because everyone just watched The Wire and thinks that it's terrible. And I'm like, oh, did you think Baltimore had a monopoly on crooked cops? That's cute.
Yeah.
I was going to say Baltimore is a tale of two cities, if there ever was. It's the east part of Baltimore, which you would like to be in, and then there's the west part of Baltimore, which, yes, is a very, very rough city. What has been your experience like, as Jen constantly talks about being a Jewish American and constantly hearing the conflation? I've been covering Nick Fuentes quite a bit because of the fact that we do have this America First libertarian-esque type movement right now that is definitively, emphatically moving away from Israel. But the conflation that it's a Jewish problem and not a Zionist problem has become a big source of contention, I think, amongst a lot of people. And I would be curious, being your background, Lee's background, Jen's background, what has it been like for you trying to, I would just say, define the narrative that is nuanced and effective rather than it just being blanketed as so many people have done to sort of take advantage of the situation in what is not such a good way?
Yeah, so I'll start by saying that there are more Christian Zionists in the United States alone than there are Jews worldwide. About 30 million Christian Zionists in the United States. There are roughly 16 million Jews worldwide. That being said, I will say it is a Jewish problem, because what Israel is doing is in the name of Jews, and they routinely say, Netanyahu will go up there and say, I speak for all Jews, as if there were like global Jewish elections. Right. That we have in our little covens where we eat babies or whatever. So, I mean, it is inherently very anti-Semitic, Zionism, not just because of the fact that Palestinians are Semitic, but if we just say anti-Jewish, Israel is an inherently anti-Jewish project. Because it suggests that the only safe place for Jews is in this extremely militarized, violent apartheid state, and that the only safe place is on the other side of genocide, which history shows you that that's never the case, right? There's no safety to be found on the other side of genocide. And it suggests that Jews can't and shouldn't live anywhere else. And this is, of course, why, as long as there's been Zionism in Jewish communities, there's been anti-Zionism. The concept of Doikite, which is wherever we are, that's our home. And we have a right to be everywhere, and we always have been. So this idea that we only belong in one place is inherently anti-Jewish. And I think that right now, as Ariel Angel wrote a really beautiful piece in Jewish Currents not too long ago saying that we need new Jewish institutions. And it's really about this splintering that's happening. And I've hosted a couple of Jewish grief sessions because I don't like when Jewish grief takes the center stage in this conversation, because it's not about that. It's about genocide of and ethnic cleansing of people of Palestine.
But it's like still real. It's still real
and that's
for
my
us.
point, is that like we need those spaces, just like there should be spaces where white folks talk about like, okay, I'm struggling with white guilt. I'm struggling. Like, don't put that. Can I curse here?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Don't put that shit on like the rest of the non-white community, but like talk amongst yourselves, you know? And so I've been hosting these Jewish grief spaces because there is an extreme splintering that's happening in the Jewish community. A lot of it is along age lines. Some of it's along, you know, orthodoxy lines, but a lot of it is just basically like disowning people for being anti-Zionist. I know a friend of mine, his family was literally trying to put him into an institution because they claimed that he was insane because he was anti-Zionist. There is an extreme splintering happening. And I don't know if Judaism will recover, but I think it's also a really great opportunity to dig up some of the nasty shit that is a part of Judaism, unfortunately, whether that be like violent patriarchy, whether that be, you know, anti-queerness, whether that like whatever it is, racism. I think it's a really good time to tease that out and be like, hey, let's bring this shit up, because we've just been leaning on we're always the victims. But really, we have some shit that we need to discuss, even beyond the current genocide in Gaza. And I think that a lot of that speaks to the fact that, you know, how a lot of Jews were able to be co-opted, that their grief and their pain was able to be co-opted into what is now the terrorist state of Israel.
Yeah, it's basically, it's like a catch-22, right? Like trauma begets trauma begets trauma, and it's a cycle. It's a vicious cycle. So on the one hand, there are real victims of real anti-Jew behavior. There are, for sure, there's that, like that's a real thing, but not to the extent that it has anything to do with the Zionist state, and certainly not regarding the amount that they're saying that there is. But I agree, it's an us problem. And it's us problem.
And I think the other thing too is that we have to look at how memory culture is used against us. I went to Auschwitz when I was 13. I don't think that anybody should go to Auschwitz. I don't think that we should keep it in this plastic kind of saran wrap, because the problem with teaching about Auschwitz the way that it often is that it is a beeline. It's it's a gateway drug to Zionism, right?
Yes.
We need Israel because Auschwitz, right? And I think, and they do this because when you are in a traumatized state, when I went to Auschwitz, the entire right side of my body went numb. I was having a trauma reaction. I didn't know it at the time.
Everybody who I've ever spoken to who's ever been there and stood on the train tracks has said that they feel death. They feel death all over their body.
Yeah, I mean, how could you not? There's still ashes in the ovens. I mean, that place is preserved in a grotesque way on purpose. And I'm not saying that everybody who wanted it preserved has these, you know, ulterior motives, but it's been twisted that way, right? They fly Israeli flags there. And so I think it's important to recognize how this trauma is used. And I think it's important to talk about how we learn our history, because it's not enough to learn history. It's about how you learn it. And so the fact that Jewish youth, I mean, there are Jewish youth who reenact Holocaust situations. Why in the fuck would you do that? That's horrific. And yet we do it because, again, it's a gateway drug to Zionism. And, you know, they already have October 7th tours in occupied Palestine, right? Because they know how to use that trauma. And I'll just point this out too really quick. Right when Israel was first founded, they didn't want to use the Shoah because they felt that what that represented was the weak Jews who died. So they were happy about it. They were glad of it. Yeah. And then they realized that they could use that as a sympathy framing for people to support Israel. But when it first started, they were no fans of the survivors, and they had no love for the victims of the Shoah. So I think it's important to talk about that as well.